what does that mean then for the MSP? The managed service provider out there is going to be a direct participant in any national AI strategy. And that's why, even as we speak, MSP Alliance is writing a open letter to Congress and anyone else who would look at it, any public policy influencers, wherever they may be, so that they can at least see the managed service provider perspective of what is needed from our industry's standpoint in order to make AI dominance and competitiveness a reality in the country. I would say there's a few key elements here that would be required, and I'll give you a little bit of a preview of what I think those are. A national AI policy will be judged by the outcomes in real environments, and that includes identity, endpoint protection, cloud, data, the help desk. All legitimate territory for the modern day MSP. Let's start with a simple question. Are we really going to run artificial intelligence in the United States under 50 different rulebooks? The administration, at least the current administration, is saying no. They want one national framework, one national policy, one singular approach to AI, artificial intelligence, and how the United States is going to maintain competitiveness, protect its citizens, and build trust so that artificial intelligence can be adopted at scale across the country, across numerous, if not all, relevant sectors. That is an ambitious strategy. I'm probably not the only person to say it. I probably think that it's the right strategy given what the administration is wanting to do. And there is a lot here. This policy just came out last Friday. So as of this recording, it is just a few days old. And still people are trying to review it, understand it, analyze it. We're going to do the same thing, except we're going to do it with an eye towards how does this impact the role of the managed service provider? Because you'd better bet, not just because we're talking about it, but because anything that relates to artificial intelligence, whether it's here in the US, anywhere on the planet, but here we're talking about US policy, it is absolutely going to govern, it is absolutely going to impact, it is absolutely going to involve the participation of the MSP. And the MSP has to be involved in order for this type of policy to work, for it to even be implemented, for it to even have a chance of success. The MSP is going to be involved and they're going to have a say in how it gets implemented. So let's dive right in. I'm going to do three things, okay? Today with this podcast, I'm going to explain why the framework is trying to accomplish what it's trying to accomplish, right? I'm going to explain why I think the administration is putting forth this framework for AI. Number two, I'm going to explain what I think it means for the country. That's more of the rationalization of the why they're doing it. And thirdly, why MSPs are kind of the operational layer that will make this policy or framework succeed, or why it's going to fail. I personally think it has to succeed. I think it will succeed. I like to be optimistic about these things, but I'm not unwise to the world and the way it works, and that there is a much larger community out there who will have a say in this. And, not all the opinions are going to be good ones. Not all the opinions and the actions will necessarily be to further the success of this strategy. But, that's life. Let's dive right in. Welcome to the MSPZone. I'm Charles Weaver, CEO of MSP Alliance and your host. And if you run a managed services business or you depend on one, this is the show for you, because what's happening in Washington, what's happening in the threat landscape, and what's happening in the cloud is about to land in your ticketing system in the very, very near future. Today, we're talking about the administration's push for a singular national AI framework, what it's designed to do, what it means for the country, and why the MSP professional is going to be the operational layer that makes that policy framework a reality. And on this show, we do deal in reality. At least we try to. What's happening out in the field, on the ground, as it were, what MSPs deal with every day, what they deal with on behalf of their customers. That's what we talk about. Those are the topics, those are the issues that we deal with and try to resolve and bring you, the MSP and the customer of the MSP, practical solutions. So the White House on Friday, that I think it was March 20, published I don't think it was an executive order. I think it was just a document. It was a think piece, some people might call it, but it's aspirational. It wasn't a very lengthy document, but it espoused what the administration would like to see for the country as a singular AI policy for the future. And it involves U.S. competitiveness, it involves U.S. national security issues, and it involves the public use and consumption and deployment of AI in a safe, secure, private manner, safe manner, shall we say. And all of those things are going to be discussed. Now, I want to be very clear up front. I'm not here to litigate political issues. I'm here to talk about and advocate for the managed service provider and the safe use of managed services by consumers who rely on it every single day. That is my chief point or objective here. So to the extent that AI is already out there, the genie is out of the lamp, so to speak. There is no way to put it back in the lamp. It's a issue that we have to deal with. And so from a certain standpoint, I understand what this is, what the administration is trying to do. But again, I'm not going to be political. I'm not going to be weighing in on this as a partisan issue one way or the other, because I think, honestly, it doesn't matter what political alignment you have. AI is a legitimate, technical, debatable issue. MSPs today are dealing with AI concepts and matters every single day. They're using it to both improve their services, they're using it to deploy downstream to their customers, and they're also seeing it being used, that is AI. They're seeing AI be used in a very offensive manner, in a bad way, by cyber bad actors who use AI as a weapon against them, against MSPs and against their customers. So we have to deal with this issue. It's not a matter of, is it a political issue? It is a reality issue that is upon us, whether we like it or not. So again, to summarize what I intend to accomplish here. Number one, what is the purpose of this national policy? What are they trying to accomplish? Two, what is its impact? How is this going to impact the country? And third, what is the role of the managed service provider in both implementing and safeguarding the proper use of AI according to this framework? Let's do this. Let's start with the purpose of the framework. Why did the administration do this? Fairly easy, I think. If you strip away the buzzwords and then what the framework is trying to accomplish, it's trying to do kind of three fundamental things all at the same time, which is it's no small feat. Number one, very clear. If you read the policy document, it's published on the web. You can go search for it and find it, and it's a quick read, and you should read it. But the number one thing that I took away from it is it's to maintain U.S. competitive advantage. Basically, it is saying that artificial intelligence represents another age of mechanization, an age similar to the to the age of automation, to the industrial age that we went through as a country in the late 1800s and the early 1900s. Not maybe dissimilar from what we went through in the early to mid 90s with the dot-com era and burgeoning technology throughout that decade. Again, the implications of AI are far reaching. I don't think that is a matter of debate. I think that's a relatively well-settled statement at this point. And the administration, at least, wants to see the United States as a country, as a whole, remain dominant and remain competitive. What I believe they think they're doing is trying to set the tone for deregulation. Yes, I absolutely believe that this is a deregulatory statement and document, even though what it's trying to do, as we'll soon find out, It's a call for congressional action. So you might say, well, how could this be a call for deregulation if the administration is absolutely asking Congress to act on this issue of AI? We'll talk about that. But I view this policy as a deregulatory one. That is to say, it is stating emphatically in the document itself, do not make AI burdensome. Do not make the things around AI, which in my opinion include IT and cybersecurity matters, don't make them so burdensome that it stifles AI innovation. So that's number one. The second thing that the administration's framework wants to accomplish is to reduce real world harms of AI usage. I mentioned one of them already, which is offensive use of AI tools as a weapon against the United States as a country and against organizations and businesses all throughout the country who might be impacted by offensive, negative, harmful activities involving AI. That's one. But number two would simply be general safety issues involving artificial intelligence, kids accessing AI, adults accessing AI, privacy issues, cybersecurity issues, all of which do come up as relevant, meaningful concepts that must be addressed when dealing with the issue of artificial intelligence. You can't separate them. They are, as you will soon hear, very, very complementary, if not symbiotic. You can't have AI without cybersecurity. They are one in the same, two sides of the same coin. The third objective of this strategy that was announced on Friday is to build trust, to kind of clear away what I would say is a fair amount of, if not negative, then certainly conflicting discussion around what does AI mean for the broader community, the country as a whole. I certainly have witnessed myself. Maybe I've participated. I tried not to participate in a negative way, but I've certainly heard and been talking about on this program a lot of what I read and hear of just random speculation by a lot of people who are smart people, but not necessarily trained in the MSP arts. They're not necessarily people who are technologists. They're outside observers, and they're looking at AI and rendering an opinion of what they think AI is going to do. And you hear a lot of people saying things like AI is going to destroy all the jobs in the planet, and we're going to be left with robots, and no human is ever going to be employable again. And I would hope by now you guys know that that's not going to happen. Skynet is not going to become self-aware and go online and destroy all the people and enslave them. I just don't buy into that. I am more a believer that whatever jobs that AI disrupts and does away with, it's going to create new jobs to replace the old, just because that's how economies work. And certainly we've already seen a lot of new jobs being created because of AI. And yes, you've had some disruption, but you've had a lot of new job creation as well. And I think that that's a good thing. So the platform from the administration broken down into those three core elements, pretty easy to understand. They want safety, security, they want trust, and they want U.S. competitive dominance. I'm not going to talk about the energy component of AI because I know that there's a lot of people out there who are probably smarter than I am who already are dealing with this issue. But certainly there is going to be a massive amount of energy demand in order to maintain our AI dominance and competitiveness. That's a separate issue. Maybe we'll talk about that in future episodes. But for today, I'm not talking about it. And I don't believe that the administration policy really is it's not an energy policy. I think there are other national energy policies already at play working. This is kind of separate, but they do kind of interact and depend on one another, in my opinion. The AI certainly does depend on the energy policy that we're currently pursuing. So you've got a number of different objectives here, right? You've got kids and families specifically mentioned in the policy. You've got community safety and kind of scam prevention. You've got intellectual property. You've got creators, free speech. You've got innovation, and you've got AI dominance. And lastly, workforce development. In the administration's policy, they specifically call out workforce development. They acknowledge that this is going to require new skills that we currently don't train for. I think that that's a whole nother topic. And I personally am looking forward to that because I think that that's going to be very exciting as we train a new generation to grow up in an AI prevalent and dominant world where they're going to have human oversight of AI in a very exciting and innovative way, I hope. But it will require skills that we don't currently teach in colleges and universities, in vocational schools, even MSPs, right? Speaking of MSPs that I talk to, they are on the very beginning of new workforce training within their MSP practice to be able to upskill and train their own staff to understand and be able to advise their customers on matters related to AI. So I think that this is going to be a multi-year, multi-generational endeavor. And I think that the administration sees that. They obviously included it in their framework policy. And so I don't have any issue with it. I agree with that wholeheartedly. So whether you agree with all of the delineated elements of the administration's policy, right? And fair minds can disagree. What I believe is reasonably well settled, at least for right now, is that the administration wants mass adoption of AI to happen, but they want guardrails. They are absolutely saying this is not a free for all. This is not going to be everybody gets to use it any way they want to. They are stating up front there are some legitimate public safety, economic concerns that must be addressed in order for a singular national AI policy to become reality. I think that's a smart move. I think there was bound to be some sort of AI governance and oversight. And here the administration is overtly getting out in front of the issue and saying to Congress, please act. Please act as a singular voice so that we can have a national policy. So let's talk about that. A national AI policy is not just for Silicon Valley. I want to be really clear here, right? The administration is not, it is absolutely not speaking just to the Silicon Valley and San Francisco community as the shining example of American dominance in technology and innovation. The administration is saying across the country, this is going to be a massive endeavor and AI is going to be developed, deployed, and consumed at all levels of the nation. And as a result of that widespread adoption, there is going to have to be a relatively fast regulatory environment that is light and nimble, according to the document. And it is going to have to be something that occurs at a federal level so that we don't have to wait for all 50 states to act on this AI issue. You could understand why the administration is saying waiting for all 50 states to kind of ring the bell at the same time and act and pass legislation on AI we could wait decades for that to happen. And even if they did all happen at the same time or within a timely fashion, there is no guarantee that all 50 states would have the same, or if not, put it differently, that they wouldn't have contradictory and harmful to a national cohesive AI policy. They might have AI laws that very much are disruptive or impede innovation, impede US dominance. So the administration is saying, we want a policy, it should be a singular policy, and to do that, we should have a national, that is to say, a federal AI policy. You know, myself, I was curious, I have to say, about whether or not the states would act first or whether the feds would act first. You know, a little bit of a cynic about the efficiency of government and how they work. So the fact that the administration is calling on Congress to act on this, it'll be interesting to see if they can do it. That's all I'll say. But if they do it, what will they produce? That's a really interesting question. If you look at a national AI policy and you look at it not as a Silicon Valley benefit or just a uniquely, tech benefit, It is going to be something that crosses state boundaries. It is going to cross multi-service vertical lines, meaning that it's going to be in everything. It's going to be in legal. It's going to be in medical. It's going to be in shipping, transportation. It's going to be in communications. It's going to be in finance. It's going to be in local government, state government administration. It's going to be in education. It's going to be in a lot of aspects of our lives. I think the administration understands this, and I think the administration is saying, this is too big to be a state issue. For those of you who are interested, I'm gonna see if our friend Rob Scott from Monger and Scott LLP will come on board and maybe join me with some continued conversations, because we actually talked about this a couple months ago and talked about this kind of federal preemption issue, and that's exactly what is going on. The federal government, at least as of right now, intends to preempt state activity in the issue of, or on the issue of, AI legislation. What that means is basically when the federal government acts on this, they're going to be saying, you, the states, kind of stay out of AI regulation. I think that leaves some rough corners that need to be addressed on the issue of cybersecurity. We'll talk about that in a moment. But that's my read, at least in terms of what the document, the AI policy document says. So what does that practically mean for the country? Number one, standardization, right? You're going to want, for nationwide adoption of AI, you're going to want clear rules, crystal clear rules that are going to be easy to understand, easy to rely on, and easy to move forward with investment, action, deployment, and reliance, that this is the singular policy for the country, and not have to worry about, the modern day MSP. I tell you, you know this as well as I do, works in frequently ever complex environments, right? In not just multi-state, multi-city, but sometimes multi-country environments. That is to say, customers who have very widespread, diverse geographic national presence. And so an MSP or an end user organization pursuing an AI objective, they certainly want simplicity. They want a singular AI rulebook to follow, not 50 different rulebooks, which would make AI adoption and AI regulation and oversight really tricky, really complicated, and I would say unnecessarily costly. And a quick note on that. The fact that the US economy largely runs on the small and mid-sized business market is not lost on, certainly me, it's not lost on the administration. I think most people out there know this, right? It's the SMB mid-market entities, businesses, and organizations that really drive this economy. Yeah, you have large, mega juggernaut, companies like Apple and Cisco and Microsoft and GM and so forth. But those aside, there's only a dozen of those types of companies out there. The rank and file companies are going to be the ones that make this AI reality a reality. And they're the ones that currently carry the burden of the gross domestic product on their back, right? They make the United States work every single day. They're going to be the ones that need to have reassurances about AI legislation and oversight. And they're going to be the ones that need to be able to understand very clearly what is being asked of them in order to use AI in a safe, productive, economically viable manner. What does that mean then for the MSP? The managed service provider out there is going to be a direct participant in any national AI strategy. And that's why, even as we speak, MSP Alliance is writing an open letter to Congress and anyone else who would look at it, any public policy influencers, wherever they may be, so that they can at least see the managed service provider perspective of what is needed from our industry's standpoint in order to make AI dominance and competitiveness a reality in the country. I would say there's a few key elements here that would be required, and I'll give you a little bit of a preview of what I think those are. A national AI policy will be judged by the outcomes in real environments, and that includes identity, endpoint protection, cloud, data, the help desk, all legitimate territory for the modern day MSP. And MSPs are not adjacent to critical infrastructure. MSPs are critical infrastructure. They're in critical infrastructure right now. And all of those critical infrastructure elements are going to be natural adopters of AI technology in the near future. So I think that there is a undeniable role for the MSP in implementing a singular US national cyber AI policy. I threw cyber in there just not by accident, because I think cyber is going to be a critical element of this. Whatever legislation that Congress comes up with is going to have to be reasonable. It's going to have to be flexible. It's going to have to be, dare I say it, it's going to have to be something that is un-Congress-like. That is to say that they're going to have to pass a law that basically says, here's the playing field, go have at it. Here are the guardrails, make those clear, what you can, what you can't do with AI. I think that those are legitimate areas. But after that, I don't think they want to be very detailed. I think they want to be very, as I said earlier in the broadcast, deregulatory in their legislation. The more specific Congress becomes on this issue, the more trouble it's going to be. Think about that. I'll say it again. The more specific and detailed Congress is in a national AI law, the more difficulty it is going to be for the everyday person using their MSP to be able to implement AI strategy and do it effectively and do it quickly. Speed here is of the essence. To ignore that is to ignore everything about what AI represents. AI represents speed to market. If you are last to market with AI, you are in last place. You have lost. You don't want to be in last place. And that's what this whole policy is about. It is about making sure that US companies and organizations are first to market. First to market with AI. That's how you achieve US national AI dominance and competitiveness. We're going to need to standardize controls. And I'm not talking about other industry controls like the legal profession has their own rules of how they do things. There are currently things like CMMC being deployed out throughout the defense industrial base. You have other NIST controls that are being deployed in other avenues throughout different sectors. You have medical, you have financial services, you have banking, fintech. But we're going to need somewhat of a standardization of controls in the country in order for this to become a reality. And I think that that could mean a lot of different things. Even our profession, managed services, we have our own control framework. They speak very fluently and conversantly with NIST controls. And so I think any legislation is going to have to recognize the existing reality that they're stepping into and recognize that to not become completely disruptive, we need to continue to advance along the compliance path that we have begun, this compliance journey, and to be refined, to be elegant, to be efficient in movements that allow AI to unfold, but to unfold in a secure, confident way. That is to say that any AI national law should not be disruptive to the existing status of MSPs as stewards of, by most accounts, at least half of the IT and cybersecurity controls for any given end user organization is directly managed by an MSP, or they flow directly from an MSP. Any national cyber AI law should take that into consideration, right? And that's why I infuse cyber with AI, because they are really part of the same coin. Different sides, perhaps, but they're part of the same coin. And so that's why we're writing this open letter to Congress to advise them on the needs of at least the MSP community to be able to be effective stewards and implementers of AI out to their customers. They need guidance. They need a singular guidance document or law, but that law needs to be somewhat flexible. It needs to be somewhat flexible for them to be able to comply with other, let's say state cybersecurity safe harbor laws, which will rub up directly against AI adoption, AI usage. And those are the elements that we are really going to have to pay attention to and deploy safely and smartly. Let's not forget MSPs and their role as frontline defenders against hostile actors towards themselves and towards their customers are increasingly using AI. So any AI legislation is probably going to have to consider that. It's going to have to consider the reality of MSPs and what they face every single day as defenders against all the bad things that want to bear down on their customers. And AI is a absolute tool, both in the offense and the defense of that battle. Any law should consider that and should be aware of that, certainly as a reality. And I could go on, but I don't have enough time to go on, but I want to be very clear. The MSP has a role. The MSP will always have a role in deploying and managing AI systems or systems that are impacted by AI. And we need commonality, but we need commonality and uniformity without being disruptive, without completely destroying what we've accomplished over the last several decades. We have a patchwork of good state cybersecurity relevant laws. We have data breach notification laws in all 50 states. We have a growing number of states who are now pursuing and enacting cybersecurity safe harbor legislation, not directly or overtly AI specific, but they certainly impact AI deployment. And these are types of policies that I think Congress needs to consider. And that's why we are such staunch advocates of the MSP, so that when these types of, once in a lifetime moments happen, when a country like the United States is pursuing a singular AI legislative strategy, that the powers that be think about, consider, and act wisely on the issue of AI and know that MSPs are there to help support and enact this. But it has to be common sense. It has to be efficient, because MSPs by definition are judged. Their very professional best practice largely judges them not just on security and what they do, but on the efficiency of what they do. And their efficiency and the efficiency of those that depend on them cannot be harmed by a burdensome piece of federal legislation. It's going to be interesting, folks. I tell you, it's going to be really, really interesting over the next couple of months and few years to see what Congress can do. I'm going to be optimistic and say that they're going to do well, but I think they're going to have to really, listen to all sides, and there's going to be a lot of voices, not just ours, the voice of the MSP, but there's going to be a lot of other voices out there. They're going to want to have a couple of cents to pitch into the pot. But make no mistake, I see what the administration's trying to do. I get the motivation behind it. It's not necessarily an easy thing, but don't make an already complex endeavor more difficult by ignoring the role of the managed service provider in a national singular AI strategy. And in fact, if you want to make your life a lot easier and the life of the country a lot easier, consider the role of the MSP and actually consider it and take steps to make their job easier, not more difficult. If you do that, a national singular AI strategy cannot just happen. It can become a reality, and it can become a reality relatively quickly. But again, we're going to watch this very closely. We're going to monitor it. If we hear of anything, we'll certainly let you know. And until next time, stay safe.